Welcome back to another edition of the Play Big podcast, where we're having conversations with people that are playing big in life, in business, and in finance. And today I have a distinct honor of having Marc Accetta in the studio. Marc, welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, Jason.
Yeah. So let's just start. Who is Marc Accetta?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Marc Accetta is a guy who grew up in New Jersey, went to college because that's what my parents told me to do and everyone else was doing, got out, got a degree, went into the real world, was pretty disappointed. So I ended up selling cookware, china, and crystal door to door. I told you that last night,
right.
for 7 years somehow. And then really the most important part of my life happened. I got involved in a network marketing company, but more importantly, after 9 months of really struggling and being on the verge of walking away, I went to a seminar, you know what I mean, a live seminar, and it completely changed the direction of my life. So not only did I make money there, but as time went on, I was good enough to become a assistant trainer and then a trainer within that system. And that's just been my life ever since, because, you know, I just look back to the lost, really ambitious, but lost 27-year-old I was.
Wow.
And it's just, you know, I love finding people, and I know you do too, who are hungry and just giving them what that gentleman gave me that weekend.
Right. Let me go to selling china.
I thought we could gloss over that.
No, I want to talk about that. I mean, first of all, what made how did you make the decision to sell china? But you weren't selling it in the U.S., right? You were selling it somewhere else.
No. This was all in New Jersey.
Oh, it was all in New Jersey. So what was the decision to go sell china?
So here's what happened. It's another funny story. So I'm in college. I'm just about ready to graduate, and I was in a band. So I was very shy back then. So when I was a junior, my best buddy came up to me, and he was a great musician. He goes, "Hey, let's do it like a band. Like, you know, I'll play, you sing."
Right.
And I'm like, okay. He played every instrument. He was talented. So I'm like, all right. So he taught me a little. So we started playing, and then we played more and more and got really popular. So I was 21 years old, you know, getting paid cash. I was rolling in my mind, I was like unbelievably rich. And then just like that movie, that thing you do, boom, we were done. Like overnight, the band was over. So here I am, a month from graduation with all these things coming up. Of course, this is funny also because I know what your mission is. I'd spent every dime of that money. I had nothing left. So I'd do something. So I answered a blind ad in a newspaper, and I went in, and I still look back at this. So I went to a residential neighborhood in Lyndhurst, New Jersey, and I went to the address, 701 Ridge Road, and there was a handwritten sign that said, "Interviews around the corner." I'm not making this up. So then I go around the other side of the building, and it says "Interviews around the corner," and I finally
like a rat in a maze.
And then it says "Interviews down." So I go down. I'm around the very back of a basement. I go down into this area, and the whole office had to be the area we're in. And I met this charismatic guy who convinced me that all my future would be involved selling cookware, china, and crystal. And I bought it. I was desperate, so I started doing it, and I liked it. You know, I'd never ever. I was a musician, so I had long hair, and I was like, nah, I'm not going to play the money game. But I was also an athlete in my previous life, and I love the competition, the leaderboards, chasing the leaderboards. Sitting across the table from someone said, "There's no way I'm going to spend $2,000 on a set of cookware," and then 2 hours later, getting them to spend $2,000 on a set of cookware.
What did you learn about yourself going through that process? Because I mean, you're coming from playing in a band, entertaining people, to being competitive and selling. But what was happening internally for you?
I think that moment? The most important thing was I realized I because the alternative, because I was just graduating, was to get a regular job and have a fixed paycheck, you know, but I realized, like, I didn't want that. Like, I wanted to have a possibility to learn more, be better, and earn more. I also learned that my first presentation And the cookware literally cost $2,000 a set, and this was in 1982.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Oh my gosh! So they told us when they were training us, don't tell someone the price until the end. Don't tell. That was the number one gig. You got to do your price comparison. So I go home, and my girlfriend at the time and her mom, and her mom grew up during the Great Depression, so very conservative financially. So I start showing the cookware, and she's like, "Yeah, what does it cost? What is?" And I'm like, "I can't tell you." She's like, "What are they brainwashing?" So finally, I caved, and I'm like, "Well, the whole set is 19. Oh my God! No, what are you out of your mind? You don't know anything about cookware. I'm a woman. No one's gonna buy this stuff. Take those suitcases and bring them back. I'm not gonna have my daughter dating someone who's it." So I walked out to the car like I'd been in a fight with Muhammad Ali, and I put the cases in, and I had a newsletter from the company that had been what am I saying? It was
laminated or
no, not laminated, but photocopied.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't even a print; it was photocopies. Yeah. And I looked at it, and the front showed the sales of the top 20 salespeople in the world, but then also like just the company sales. And I looked at it, and it was this summer, so it was like June, and for the year, the company had done something like $28 million in sales. So I just sat there and said, "What do you mean no one's going to buy it? I mean, they sold $28 million worth of stuff." So my little internal rebel, I knocked on the door of her best friend, Mrs. Masato, and I said, "Hi, Miss Masato." She liked me. She was Italian. I'm Italian. I go, "I just started. Can I come in and show you?" And I walked in there and sold the biggest package. And then I strutted back over to my future mother-in-law and said, "Hey, how you doing?"
Yeah, by the way.
Yeah, so what I learned there, to go back to your question, was I was more of a fighter than I thought, you know what I mean? And I was up for the challenge, and I like that. Like, I didn't ever have that part of me come out previous to that situation.
That's really cool. And so this was door-to-door sales?
Yeah, literal door-to-door. I always tell people, when you're, going to see someone to show them, that's not door-to-door, that's visiting. I was knocking on doors, having dogs chase me, the whole 9 yards.
Wow, that's great. And you did that for 7 years? 6 or 7 years?
I did it for almost 7 years. Now, truth be told, after my first year and a half, I figured out how to get referrals, but more so I started buying leads of engaged girls. So I did a little door-to-door, but that first year and a half was daily door knocking.
Right. Yeah,
crazy.
Which is amazing. Most people hate to sell, let alone not rocking up to someone's house they don't even know.
And I'm telling you, I was the least likely, but they had a great training, and the guy talked about the law of averages. And he says, if you knock on this many doors, you'll find out on average over, 30 days, how many you get in. Then you do your presentation, you find out on average how many sales you make, and you find out your average order. So it's more consistent than it's as consistent as a regular weekly paycheck.
Right.
And I just said, "Oh, okay, that makes sense to me."
Yeah. So, why do you think most people wouldn't though? Because most people, even if you tell them, "Here's the average," like you have to go talk to 100 people and 3 people, and they you can say, "Oh, it's the law of averages or the law of numbers," but something psychologically, and most people go, "It's the 97 people that say no that destroys me." What was different about you, do you think?
Well, first of all, I was just so stupid I believed him. You know what I mean? Like, I was just, he said it in such a way, that it just made sense to me. But I guess to your point, people are either focused on the yeses or the nos, and most people, it's that rejection, having trained salespeople now for almost 4 decades. They just can't take they take it personal.
Right.
Where I guess that was it. I didn't take the rejection personal. They were rejecting the product or the idea of a salesman coming in, not me personally.
Right. Now, how do you help someone get over that someone that does take it personally, they have some intention behind what they want to do, but all the no's way heavier on them than the 2 or 3 wins that they got. How do you help someone get beyond the negative to see the positive?
Well, my go-to for that is to say, remember being in high school and you liked a girl and you tell your friend, hey, could you go talk to her for me? So he goes over and says, hey, my friend Mark would like to take you out. And if the girl bursts out laughing, goes, oh, I would never go out with Mark. When my friend comes back to me, is he upset? Does he feel rejected? Or is he coming back going, dude, you're never going to believe what happened? So in other words, he's the person who's selling. She rejected me, not him.
Right.
So if someone rejects a company's product, why would you take it personal? It has nothing to do with you.
Right. That's a great reframe.
Yeah, thank you.
That's really good. So you got you're selling dishes, china, glassware. How did you get introduced? You said you moved to network marketing. How'd you get introduced to network marketing?
Well, the charismatic guy who was in that basement was my first role model, I guess you would say, and he left that company. So I was there 7 years. He left after maybe 4.
Okay.
And he was someone I really loved. This guy, he was my first real mentor. Now, when I look back at it, he was nowhere near the people I'd work with in the future. But I was very shy back then. I had a lot of. He was a big deal to me. So he called me up, a couple years later, and he was in town. He goes, hey, I want you to come down to a place called Rick's, have a couple drinks. Haven't seen you in a while. Classic network marketing invite. He didn't tell me what we were doing.
Right.
He did say I'm with some guys that I work with, so he told me that. So he had a beer, and he goes, hey, we're going to do a presentation in the back room. Why don't you check it out? So I was like, okay. So I went in the back room, and it was just one of those moments. For me, it was like the clouds parted, and I looked at it, and it was like, you've got to be kidding. Oh my gosh.
Possible, right?
Yeah. Like I can make money off other people. Now, after selling for 7 years and all of my successes or failures being on my own shoulders, the idea of building a team.
Yeah.
And then, he said to me, he goes, Mark, how can you recruit people to sell a $2,000 set of cookware when an average set of cookware was $100?
Right.
Here, we were selling water filtration products. This thing makes bottled water for 3 cents a gallon. You're going to kill this deal. You're going to build a huge. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was off and running.
Oh, that's cool. So how did it start for you? Did it start good or start not so good?
Well, the selling part started good because the water filters I was selling were $200, and I was used to selling such a high. So I was selling a lot, but the recruiting was a disaster because, and this is what a lot of people don't understand about network marketing, you're not selling, you're sorting when it comes to building a team. So I wasn't, though. I was selling because I was a salesman. Right. So I was, back then it was a company called NSA, which is now Juice Plus. And the whole pitch was I'd bring you in to, get water filters. Our company sales approach was the puppy dog. So try it, you'll like it. So here's a filter. Let me hook it up. Keep it for a week. I'll come back and tell me if you like it or not. But how could you leave it with someone unless you bought them wholesale? Right. So we bought 40 filters wholesale at $5,000. So I was closing people on, come on, do this. This is going to be amazing. And I was pretty good at it. So I was making some good upfront commissions, but no duplication. Everyone was quitting. And what I didn't realize was I was convincing people who really didn't want to do it. But since I was a really good closer, I was getting them in. And then not until I went to that seminar did the guy actually make that very distinction. He goes, look, you got to get people who want to do this. Right. No one's going to go recruit their friends. No one's going to go sell your product if they don't get it. If you sell them into it, you're wasting your time.
Right. Before we get into recruiting and the word that you said, sorting people, and in sales, you said you're good at closing people. What is it that made you good at closing, or what was your process for closing someone?
Great question. Well, first of all, I was told that someone's going to say no to me 7 times before they say yes. So you got to be relentless. You know what I mean? I was also told an objection is not a bad thing. It means they're still interested. It's not a no. So again, I was comfortable with realizing it probably wasn't going to happen right away.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I also, I'm a big Zig Ziglar guy, so huge Zig Ziglar guy. So I really bought into the concept of I'm not a salesman, I'm an assistant buyer. So instead of sitting across the table, I'm going to sit on the same side of the table as you. So I really learned to listen to what was in their best interest, not what I was going to make the biggest commission on, or whatever was in my best interest. But I really, it sounds a little corny, but I bought into that.
Yeah.
So when I was there, like, I really believed the products were in their best interest. As a matter of fact, fast story, I did it for 2 years without owning the cookware. So then I'm at the convention, and the number one salesperson's at the bar, and I'm at the bar, and I went up to Bert, and I'm like, Mr. Leroy, could I ask you a question? He goes, yeah, sure, kid. What do you want to know? And I said, well, how do you beat everyone? Like, if the number 2 salesperson sold 150,000 for the year, he sold 400,000.
Wow,
He was clobbering people.
Everyone.
So I asked him, he goes, all right, well, what's your favorite thing to cook in a cookware? And I went, and he looked at me and he just laughed. He was such a nice guy. And he goes, you don't own the cookware, do you? And I'm like, no. He goes, I'm going to take a wild guess. At the end of your presentation, people say something like, wow, this is such good stuff, but, really it's a little too expensive, or I can't afford it. And in your head, you go, yeah, I know what you mean.
Right.
Because that's your own objection, you idiot.
That's right.
He goes, buy the cookware, and I'll have dinner with you next year. If you buy the cookware, and I did. But I was pissed. I was like, buy the cook. I'm a single guy. What do I need?
What am I cooking?
But I bought the cookware, and it cooked vegetables with no water. It did all this stuff, and I used to pitch it pretty effectively, but you know the deal. Then all of a sudden I started cooking with it, and it was like, it really is unbelievable. So then when people would say exactly what Bert was saying, when people said to me, well, I love it, but I can't afford it, I'm like, no, you don't understand. That's how I used to feel. But when you cook the carrots with no water, so I was so much more real and believable because I love the product. So I think that was really the most important thing to me being a good closer, is knowing how good the product was and believing it was in their best interest to get some.
What do you think it was about not wanting to own the product that you were selling? Because a lot of people do that, especially in network marketing. They more interested in making the commission than actually utilizing the product. What was it for you, and what do you think it is for other people?
For me, I just didn't want to pay $2,000, and I just didn't think I needed it. You know what I mean? So I think for most people, they're just trying to cut corners. Everyone's looking for the fast buck. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's like they don't really understand that nothing of greatness comes quickly or easily. You can't microwave success. You've got to go through the phases or the steps. And, for part of it's believing in your product, you know what I mean? Yeah. And, I know guys go, I could sell broken glass in a plastic bag. I'm like, wow, good for you. That's great. But I mean, you're never going to duplicate that.
Right.
Networking is filled with average people who are not professionally trained salespeople. So if they don't believe in what they're selling, they have virtually no chance.
That's right.
Yeah.
You said something. You like, I was relentless. Where did that come from for you? When did you first recognize that you had relentlessness, and then how did you cultivate it or turn it into a positive thing for you to get you through?
Well, I think I've learned it that first night I told you a story about the mom who told me return that stuff. But then as time went on, my mentor said there's 3 rules. So when I went 9 months, I went to this seminar, and I started going every event this guy did. I was in the room. I was in the front row. Like I couldn't get enough. And he had 3 basic rules. Simple. Pay attention, get excited, never quit. Wow. That's it. Never quit. Like not pay attention, get excited, never quit unless your whole group quits. Pay attention, get excited, never quit unless whatever. You just don't quit. You know that old Nike commercial, got knocked down 8 times, got up 9 times. Right. So I just was like, all right, I'm not the most talented, but I can do that. Like I can just not quit. I mean, I that can be my thing. You know what I mean? That would separate me, if you will, from other people.
What do you think other people are so willing to quit on themselves?
I just always say, how many times I'm guilty of this, you're at a wedding and it's like, for better, for worse, rich or poor, until death do we part. And, those two people are still alive, but they're not together,
Right.
so we quit. 50% of people go to college, drop out. It's in our DNA to quit. You know what I mean? When something isn't simple or easy or doesn't come quickly, I just think it's human nature. That's my belief is there's some great things about human nature, but most of human nature works against this.
Right.
That's why you and I are gainfully employed.
Right.
So, people just quit. They give up before they put in enough time and energy to get there. And especially now, and especially with business opportunities, so many bright, shiny things on social media with everyone promising you could be a millionaire in 7 hours. All you have to do is, the 1 hour work week, you know what I mean? Just all this crazy stuff. So I think people are even more likely to give up quickly and move on to the next thing.
You've helped hundreds of thousands of people over the years. How have you been able to help guide or coach someone that has the natural tendency to quit? To stay in it long enough to develop the fortitude or the relentlessness that it takes to not quit?
Yeah, great question. Again, I live by those 3 rules. So that's number 1. Number 2, I just tell them stories.
Yeah.
Stories of people who almost quit, who didn't quit.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I also learned it's Jason, it's a sorting game. Go back to the sorting. I'm not just sorting to get them in. Once they're in, people always say, who's the ideal? What's your demographic?
Right.
Who you? And I'm like, there is no demographic, but I will tell you what I'm looking for: someone who's hungry, someone who's teachable, and someone who's tough.
Right.
Because, years ago, my mentor was a manager of a guy named Billy Rhino Wright, who was a heavyweight. And Billy's fist was this, this dude was
big,
massive. And we saw him fight a couple times in person. One time I saw him knock a guy out with a body shot. Like, it was ridiculous. So he was climbing up the ranks, and then he fought Michael Moorer on a undercard for a Holyfield fight.
Wow.
And Billy, turns out, had a glass jaw. You know what I mean? Wow. It's like, so, no matter, it's that Rocky thing, right? No matter how hard you hit, it's can you get hit?
Yeah.
So, with people, I think a lot of people, again, I go back to a lot of network marketing, but it's true in real estate and insurance and anything. I think a lot of people were building a team, were trying to protect them. Like the parent who's telling their child, be careful, be careful.
Right.
Well, that's a terrible thing to tell your kid, because, Jerry Rice wasn't careful. Michael Jordan wasn't careful.
Right.
You got to play, you got to go all out, got to be all in. So I like to let people go, and I'm watching them. Like, as a parent, I'm not going to let them die on the playground, but I'm going to let them stub their toe and see how they react. Because a lot of people, if they quit quickly, I might be able to train them, but mostly I'm probably not going to be able to. So we always say it's easier to give birth than to resurrect the dead.
Yeah, that's true. When you were getting into network marketing, you were talking about you were good at sales at the beginning, but then recruiting becomes an important component, and that you moved to the sorting. How did you make the shift from I'm good at sales to I'm good at recruiting? And in your experience, because there's a big difference between selling a product and selling someone an opportunity to get them to do something. What was the distinction for you, and how did you make the shift from sales to recruiting?
Well, my first thought was, the whole J. Paul Getty thing, it's better to make 1% off the efforts of 100 people instead of 100% of your own efforts. So I bought into that, first of all. So, it's interesting because now one of my clients is an insurance company, and there's a lot of people in the insurance company who make $150 to $300 grand a year selling.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, they're really good at it, so they probably only work 3-4 days a week.
Correct.
So one of my roles was to convince them that they should also recruit and build. So I tried to frame it like, hey, why don't you make believe selling insurance is your full-time job, and you just took a part-time job recruiting people to sell insurance, you know what I mean? So it's a very different skill. And, you know, I realized the upside there was much, much higher. So it goes back to what I was saying about sorting people, you know what I mean? So, you know, with selling, it would be like, again, I love analogies. So imagine there's a young lady, and I ask her out, and she goes, "Nah, it's okay. It's not, you know, thank you." And I go, "But wait," and I won't leave her alone. You know, I go, "Yeah, but check it out. Look at, you know, I've been going to the gym. Well, here, look at my bank account, you know," and I keep
Right.
going. I just won't leave her alone until she finally goes, "Fine, I'll go on a date with
Right.
you." Well, that's not going to lead anywhere.
Correct.
You'd rather ask someone who goes, "Yeah, I'd love to go out with you." So when I learned that part of recruiting, it made it easier for me. Like, again, I'm just, some will, some won't. So what? But I said this earlier, that's where, like, a lot of people learn to recruit, but they don't learn to build. Because you sort to get them in, but then you also sort to see if they do anything.
Right.
Whenever you're dealing with independent contractors, you know this, a lot of people do nothing.
Yeah.
So, and I see a lot of new people trying to build a team, and they spend so much time with people that are doing nothing. Like, that's ridiculous. You got to at least sort and see who's doing something. But of the group who's doing something, you start spending a little bit of time. But in that group, some of them are going to be potential leaders and some aren't. So, you know, my mentor told me you work where you deserve, not where you're needed. And that, a lot of people don't like that. They're like, "But I want to help everyone." Like, well, then join the USO or the Red
Right.
Cross, you
That's
know.
right.
I'm sorry, but if you want to build a team, imagine, you know, Nick Saban's at Alabama. I'm an Alabama guy,
Yeah.
so I'm heartbroken right now. But imagine Nick Saban goes, "Well, this guy's slow and he's not strong, and but, you know, let's just let him play anyway."
He's a good guy.
Yeah, I'm going to just, let me put as much energy into him as I have into Tua Tagovailoa or any of these guys who ended up being superstars. You've got to work with the people who deserve your time and make them exceptional. You know, go from great to elite, you know what I mean? As opposed to trying to drag someone from average to good. And that's what most people are doing when they're building a team, because if I don't have good self-image, then I'm going to recruit down. I'm going to try to recruit people who are not as good as me. I feel comfortable going after them. But if you can have a better self-image and lead by example, and then go after good people and try to pull them up and make them the best they can be, that's what I found, you know, when I figured that one out.
Right.
But it took time. It didn't happen overnight.
Right. So when people are recruiting, they're making a shift from sales to recruiting, and they start to figure out the sorting process of who's good. How do you coach people to, going back to the making 1% off of 100 people versus 100% of yourself? So if you're coming from, I've been earning an income or making money off of 100% of myself, and now I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to go over here part-time. So now maybe it's 50, 60% over here. And now I'm working with a bunch of deadbeats. Now my income goes down. How do you help someone that is, they see their income going backwards now when they're trying to recruit and build? How do you navigate the time allocation, or that this one ultimately will be the better reward?
Yeah. So again, first you sell them on it's better long-term to have the residual income. But then, you know, it's like the whole, you're going to take 5 steps back to take 100 steps forward. I'm big on expectations. So in other words, if I don't let you know that what we're going to do, that your income could go backwards for a little while, then when it inevitably happens, you're very upset and potentially quit. But if we talk about it up front and go, yeah, you might take a little bit of a dip. The other part is, right now, you control your own actions. So when you build a team, you really don't control anything. So what's probably going to drive you most crazy is someone who's got all the potential in the world and they don't want to work or whatever. So I try to let them know a little of that ahead of time so that when they come up I always say, look, if you go into a haunted house and you don't know what's coming, it's going to scare the shit out of you. But if you go, when you walk in, there's this fake buzzsaw that comes at your head, you know, it's not that it won't impact you, but it's not as bad. You know what I mean? So I think that's been one of the things I've tried to do over the years is prepare people a little bit for what's coming. and let them know, again, everything is down the road. Anything worth having is down the road.
Right. And then going from recruiting to building, explain to people that maybe aren't familiar with network marketing or are in network marketing but really don't understand building and the difference between recruiting and building, because people will use those words a lot. But what is the distinction between sales, recruiting, and building?
Sure. Well, selling is just going to a customer and selling them your product or service. Recruiting is the act of getting someone in the business to be on your team. Like you're actively basically selling them or sorting them to get them on your team.
Right.
Building is where you're teaching them how to do the business. So this is another thing over the years I think that's really helped the people I've worked with is, first of all, when most people teach someone how to do something, they're terrible at it. So, I always teach people tell, show, watch, go. Tell, show, watch, go. You want to teach someone how to use the phones properly? Tell them, show them, watch them, then go. You want to teach your kid how to feed the dog? Most people tell, go. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's ridiculous.
Right.
So it's like, imagine teaching a 7-year-old how to feed the dog.
Right.
It's going to be a disaster.
That's
There's going to be more food on the floor than
dog's
in
going
the
to be
dog.
overweight.
It's going to be ridiculous, right? So we, that's part one of it is tell, show, watch, go. So now I've taught you how to use the phones, but that's not duplication. That's not building. What building is I come back to you 2 weeks later and go, hey, remember how I taught you to use the phones? Now I'm going to teach you how to teach your people how to use the phones. And to me, that's the big distinction. Because, I went to a drag racing school of all things years ago with a guy named Frank Hawley. It was my mentor's idea. For me, I was terrified. But anyway, one of the coolest learning experiences I ever had is Frank brought a bunch of little kids in. And you have 6 or 8 macho guys going, what the hell are we? We're going to drive cars, man. Yeah. And he has these little kids come in, and he goes, okay, so how many of you know how to tie your shoes? And I'm like, of course we do. Okay, what I'm going to do, each one of you pair up with a kid now, and I want you to teach them how to tie their shoes. And it was one of the most really exasperating things I've ever experienced. And again, go back to my point. It's like just because you can do something doesn't mean you can teach it. Right. And a lot of times people go, I taught them how to do it. It's like, well, if they didn't learn it, then you suck as a teacher or a coach, right? Like 100%. They've got to be able to do it. So, tell, show, watch, go, and then teach someone how to teach are the main things for me to like build and get momentum and get traction. Right. Most people don't do that. They just throw the poop against the wall and see if it sticks and move on and get more.
Yeah, the hard part about building. How did you learn how to deal with people? Because basically, when you're moving them through that process, tell, show, watch and go. There inevitably challenges come up. People's psychosis come up. All their emotions, all their thoughts, all their disbeliefs, all their disempowering beliefs come up.
Yep.
How did you learn how to deal with people? Because it's one thing to walk them through, a system of doing something, but the magic is always in the process of moving somebody through those steps. Yeah. So how did you learn how to deal with people?
Yeah.
Of all kinds, right? Because all their everyone's got different demons that haunt them. But how did you learn how to deal with people to move them through that system?
Well, when I went to that first seminar I told you about, I went there with my expectation. Here's a guy, and all they told me is this guy's making $100,000 a month, which back then it's good now, but then it was ridiculous. And I was like, okay, so I went there to learn how to do the business, how to invite, how to present, how to close, how to train. Now, during the time I was there, he taught all that stuff. Mm-hmm. What I didn't know he was going to teach was all the what we call personal development stuff. You know what I mean? How can I recruit someone and lead them if I have terrible self-esteem? Like, so Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People, The Power of Positive Thinking, and on and on. I'd never heard any of those books, So I started that path down personal development. And, it was Jack Welch who said in the beginning, being a leader is you working on yourself. So that's what I did. I worked on myself. But then he says, Then the second step of leadership is working other people, helping them grow and develop. So that became it still is my life's mission, to learn people. And we talked last night, I'm big on the personality profiling. We do it through colors. And, learning as much as you can. And then, Mars are from men, women are from Venus. Like if you care about everyone. I remember Phil Jackson, the basketball coach, said, I never treated two players the same. Of course, he treated them with respect, but he's not going to treat Michael Jordan and Judd Bushler, the last guy on the bench, the same. It's ridiculous. So I think that's what I learned was, to your point, you got to study people and see what their hot points are and what turns them on and what turns them off, and the right way to communicate with people.
Right. Yeah, I think most people just, just blanket everyone's the same, and I'm just going to teach everyone the same. How did you make the shift from being a builder, a teacher, to people, to the other move that you said that is next is being a teacher of teachers? Because I think that's some of the greatest mentors in my life are teachers of teachers, but most people don't ever get to that point. How did you make the shift from teaching, becoming a good educator, teacher, empower of someone, to teaching other people how to do that?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. I was impacted by, the statement that a great leader doesn't create followers, they create other great leaders.
Right.
And then, the idea of legacy. I've always loved, when you're watching a football game and they go, these are all the guys who came from Nick Saban. This is his coaching tree, if you will.
Yes.
That turned me on, you know what I mean? So now I look at it and, I've got guys one of my former students, guy was in my downline for years, is in this deal now making like $4 or $5 million a week.
Wow.
I'm like, hey brother, can I have a loan?
Yeah.
Like
what a royalty on that?
Oh my God. Yeah, that would be nice. But I love that feeling. I guess some people do and some people don't. But I realized also, looking for my highest and best use, my calling, my purpose, whatever you want to call it. I did network marketing as as a builder.
Right.
Not an average one. I was really good at it. I was in 4 companies at the highest rank, top 10 income earners. So I was really good at it, but it wasn't my highest and best use. I realized I had more passion and more actual talent in training people than I did in actually doing it.
So what have you learned about yourself in that process of moving from I am the active participant in building this team of people, now I'm an active participant in teaching, educating, and empowering a lot of other people to do what you used to do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't know how to explain. It just turns me on. I go back to the first thing. You asked me who is Marc Accetta. Well, I vividly remember that confused, unmotivated guy. And my mission in life is to go find that guy again, over and over and over again. Because truthfully, without that seminar and without this gentleman becoming my mentor, I would, you think the way you've always thought, you do the same things, you get the same things. So I owe everything to personal development, to seminars. I love it. So the idea that I can pay it forward, I guess you would say, that just turns me on. I love that a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. For years I read that and was like, oh, I better put a lot of money aside for my kids. And then it just hit me one day. It's because my daughters now are 28 and 25. And I'm like, I don't know what the stats are, you probably do, about first-generation millionaires passing on their money, and what a vast percentage of those kids. Oh my gosh, because they give them the money, they don't leave the inheritance. Is how you make the money, how you think.
That's right.
So that's what really started getting in my head. It's I just want to be the guy who has taught as many people as I humanly possibly can what that inheritance is. All these things that I've been blessed enough to be around, all these amazing people over the years, package it my own way and just share it with people. So, it can keep going on and on and on.
Right. You've traveled all over the planet. I think you said last night over 80 countries. And, taught, trained, and educated. What have you learned about people in general? Just going to so many different countries, different cultures, different religions, different upbringings.
Yeah, I love that question. So when I first started going overseas, I'll never forget this. I had a gentleman who'd done a lot of business overseas. And we were in the UK, and he's going, yeah, you need to tone yourself down. You know, these Brits, they don't like that American hype and blah, blah. And listen, there's some truth in that.
Right.
I get it. And I kind of like listened, but then I was like, I'm just going to be myself.
Right.
And, you know, and then I was told, well, in Europe, you know, you won't be able to get people from Greece and Turkey in the same room because they hate each other, you know what I mean? And, or, you know, the football rivalries and stuff. And here's what I found. Different languages, different cultures, different everything, but at their core, people are people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Everyone wants to be loved, respected, appreciated. They want to be known. They want their voice to be heard. So in general, truthfully, like I love the fact that no matter where you go, at their core, humans are humans.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing. The what do you think is happening currently as you travel? You're about to travel abroad again. Is there a difference between? Is there a different feeling in the world right now, or what do you think is happening in the world that most people aren't winning? Because in my experience, I think more now than even several years ago, there is an addiction to a poverty mindset, and there is a high level of mediocrity, more so now, in my opinion, than there was before. I don't know if you see the same thing, but what are you aware of currently with people that aren't winning or want to?
Yeah, you make a good point. Like, you know, the whole thing, you know, one of my favorite, if you come to my house and my office, I've got all kinds of things in my bookcase that matter to me. And one of them is my Little League baseball trophy that we won from winning the championship. Wow. Like, we got a trophy for winning the championship. What a concept.
Yeah, wow.
Now, you know, you get a trophy, obviously, for participating. And it's like, it's that mindset. Like, we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Everyone can just chill out. What happened here during COVID, so many people getting relief funds, you know, restaurants couldn't get someone to come back to work because they were making more money on unemployment than they would if they came back to work. So I think, like, you know, again, human nature is, unfortunately, people want to get the brass ring, but they don't want to get off the couch.
Right.
You know, so the more that they see that propagated, the more they feel like it's a good thing. So I feel like the hustler is becoming more and more rare to what you're saying. But, you know, that's why the rich get richer. Right. You know, that's what the separator is, because you can, whatever you want to say, ultimately, the person who's going to get after it is the one who's going to be wealthy, is the one who's going to have all the success, not the, you know, again, I go back to Nick Saban. You know, there's 5 kinds of people: poor, average, good, great, elite. Right. You know, it's like, you know, so if your mindset is, my college professor one time told me that average, you'll love this, the definition of average is the highest degree of poor. Wow. So someone who's phenomenal at being pathetic, someone who's the best at being the worst. So think about it. But the problem is, a synonym for average is normal. Everyone wants to be normal. Right. So, you know, Bill Gates is abnormal. Right. Well, he is abnormal. But the point is, like, anyone I can mention their name, Stephen Jobs, Bill Gates, Leonardo DiCaprio, they're not normal. Right. You don't mention a human being's name and everyone in the world knows them if they're normal. Right. Bob Smith is normal. So if you want to be normal, then do what everyone else is doing. You know what I mean? If you want to be above normal, above average, you got to have that mindset of, I'm going after elite, and worst comes to worst, I'll be great, but I want to be elite. Right. You know what I mean?
That's powerful. I mean, average is the highest degree of poor.
Yeah.
Dang, man, I didn't even steal that line.
Take it.
I've never heard it mentioned like that, but that hits the nail right on the head right there. You mentioned about personalities. Could you explain for people who maybe have never heard of like personality tests, or that there are different personalities? because there is a lot of personality tests out there, but in your experience or the way that you teach it to help people, what are different types of personalities that you see?
Sure. Well, I go back to the original test with Hippocrates, the Greek physician. I know a lot of people make believe they made up these tests, but I mean, it goes back to ancient Greece. So there's 4 basic personalities. You know, one is the hard driving, aggressive, win at all costs, you know, very materialistic, very self-centered, very egotistical, you know, driver, if you will. That, you know, I call that a red.
Okay.
Then you've got the very easygoing, you know, person that wants to have fun. You know what I mean? They want to enjoy the moment. They want to have an adventure. They're not great at being on time or remembering things, you know, but everyone loves them. They're the life of the party. So I call them a blue. Then you've got the people who are just the nicest, most wonderful human beings in the world. Everything is driven by relationship. They really don't care about money. Very spiritual, love animals, love the great outdoors, want to save the environment. Not competitive at all, just, you know, settling for what life puts in their path. They take rejection very personally because they want everyone to like them. They're natural born peacemakers. That's what I call yellow. And last but not least are the people who are very precise. They do everything by the book. They plan everything. Very analytical, very untrusting of other people. You know, they don't really even like being around people sometimes. You know what I mean? And we call those people green. You know, sometimes they have paralysis by overanalysis, you know. So those are the 4 general. Now, the thing is, all of us have all 4 in there.
Right.
So, like, I'm a red, but I have other friends. My wife is a red, and my wife's way redder than I am, which makes for interesting conversations. But what I try to do is, you know, there's DISC and Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram. There's so many different ones. And I'm not, you know, what we focus on is not like self-discovery. So like, okay, I'm a red, so I know what my tendencies are, what I like and I did. To me, that's irrelevant. I think of the analogy of a dog. Like I have a lab, right? Oh my gosh. And labs are great. Yeah, I have a black lab. So, and when a lab gets excited, that tail, man, goes like
everything off the table.
Right? Now, the thing is, the lab's looking at you and they're so excited and they're oblivious, totally unaware to what that tail is doing. Well, to me, that's us with our natural personality traits. So if I'm a red and, you know, for me, I want to wear designer stuff. I've got to have the best of everything. So for me, I just assume everyone thinks like I do. But to a yellow or a green, that's a turnoff. A green's looking at my Rolex going, dude, I could get a Timex that costs $100 that keeps just as good time. What kind of I could take that money, put it in an investment and put my kid through college. You're an idiot. You know what I mean? But I'm thinking, well, he's going to want to hang out with me because I have a Rolex. So that what I try to focus on is how you need to adjust to deal with the person you're dealing with. The total opposite of my way or the highway. Right. You know, it's like I'm going to spend a little time, read you, if you will, and then communicate with you in your communication style, because I believe people buy from people they like and trust, and we like and trust people that are like us.
That's right. Yeah, you become a master gardener of everything that's going on. Explain to me, you also educate on stages all over the world. What do you, when you are communicating and educating and you have that opportunity, what is the primary outcome you want people to know when they walk away from an experience of yours? You do life mastery, you do would you say something about the edge or the view?
Yeah, we have a training called the View from the Edge, one of the programs we do. So it really depends. First of all, I'm a big how-to trainer, and I know you are as well. So the motivation's phenomenal, and it's necessary. But as Zig Ziglar said, it doesn't last.
Short-lived.
So if I come in and I motivate you, like let's say I walk in and I spend or better yet, let's get Tony Robbins in here. You've worked with him before. So Tony comes in and he motivates, you know, your child to be a doctor. It really motivates him. And then we give your son a scalpel. Well, does that make your son a doctor? Or if he uses that scalpel, it makes him dangerous, right? Yeah. So, but if we teach him how to use the scalpel, and we motivate them why it's important to be the doctor. So I believe two things. It's what they learn and how they feel. So I'm attacking both because I think one without the other is a complete waste. There's just got to be a balance of both. So that's what I focus on is getting them to learn whatever skill it is they're there to learn, but walking out and believing they can do it.
Right. What is most exciting to you right now in this moment of your life, and what is it that you looking forward to do for this year? What is it that's got you excited and motivated and committed? Like I get that you can be a motivated person, but like you said, motivation is short-lived. But I get the sense like you're extremely disciplined, extremely committed, tenacious, and relentless. But what is it that has you most excited? Currently,
a couple of things. So I after years and years, I've always worked for a client. I've been very blessed. So I went from one client to another, all based on word of mouth. You know, I've never had to market myself, so to speak. So for the first time in my adult life, I'm a free agent, so to speak. So I love a lot of the trainings we do, but this View from the Edge program where we act out. It's just a really unique way of edutainment, educating and entertaining people at the same time. So I'm really excited to be able to do that for a broader audience. And I'm also excited about my book that I've been working on for 238 years is finally going to get done this year. You know what I mean? That's so, cool. I'm excited about launching the book, and I'm excited about just, again, I'm a live guy, and I know virtual's great. I do a lot of Zooms, but I only do Zooms so I can get people to come live because I love face-to-face. Yes. You know, I mean, if we were doing this over a Zoom, it'd be cool, but it's not the same going to dinner, getting to know each other. So I'm a big believer in that. So I'm excited to put people in a room and be able to impact them the way God's allowed me to impact people.
Right, and so if people wanted to find out more information about that program or find out more about you, where would they go to do that?
LifeMasteryTrainings.com is where that's all the live events I do that are open to anyone. So LifeMasteryTrainings.com and just MarcAccetta.com is my basic, just if you want to know about me.
Cool. Well, I've enjoyed the conversation today. You see, we've got a lot of stickers on the table.
Yeah.
And so you'll indulge us. You get the opportunity of writing something or just signing your name or both, a message and a signature that you think people need to know.
Sounds good.
And then you get to choose wherever you want it to go on the table.
I'm excited.
And what does it say?
Average is the highest degree of poor. I know you like that
degree
one,
of poor, man. That was, like a bullet.
I love it. I'm going to go right next to my buddy Ray there, Ray Higdon.
Yes. Very good. Well, thank you again for the conversation. Thank you for being here. Look forward to seeing what is next. Until next time, always ride the wave of life and always play big.